By week 4, my family stood under a projector in a modest country club, while slides showed excerpts from our own group chat email headers with my legal name and a police report number on the final frame. The luxury SUV they loved to flaunt had already been voluntarily surrendered and was sitting in a storage lot scheduled for auction. The school seats they had promised on my behalf were quietly withdrawn within a few days. That was the moment the room understood this was not drama. It was documentation. I am Madison Hale. I am 32, a vice president of marketing at a New York fintech, the reliable one who color codes calendars and keeps receipts, because that is how I learned to stay standing. I thought I knew what family obligation looked like. I did not. Not until betrayal arrived wearing my last name and my social security digits. What they did not know was this. My entire career runs on evidence, version history, paper trails. When trust breaks, I know how to rebuild it. When someone rewrites the story in my voice without permission, I know how to take the microphone back. If you have ever carried a family on your back while they told you your spine was selfish, tell me where you are watching from. I see you. And yes, I kept the screenshots. I will get to that. Here is the setup you need. I live alone in a one-bedroom condo in Brooklyn Heights. 9 years of early trains and late nights bought it. 9 years of packed lunches and spreadsheets that could make you cry. My brother Brooks is the golden child who believes the universe is a concierge. My parents call me practical. Translation: I am the person they expect to fix the mess, to co-sign the risk, to smile while doing it. 3 small clues were sitting in my life long before the explosion. First, a laminated page in my building's welcome binder that spells out owner occupancy rules in polite, unforgiving sentences. I initialed it at closing. Guests are temporary. Move-ins require approval. This matters later. Second, a Ring camera aimed at my tiny strip of sidewalk because Brooklyn is generous with delivery bikes and surprises. Third, an email subject line I did not recognize that used my full legal name and a phrase I had never requested. Purchase agreement ready. I did not open it yet. Not then. I kept moving because that is what responsible people do. I set a grocery bag on the counter. I texted my friend Noelle that I had finally framed my diploma, the one I used to keep in a drawer. I told myself life was finally quiet. I told myself the ground was solid. But here is the part I could not see yet. While I was polishing lemon oil into my maple table and pretending I was done earning my safety, someone else was filling out forms in my name. Someone who loved me. Someone who believed love meant access. Someone who thought the word family was a master key. Keep these clues in your pocket as we go. The condo rules with my initials. The Ring camera that sees what my memory might miss. The email subject line that should never have been mine. Because when the U-Haul rolled up to my lobby and the doorman's eyebrows did that polite New York question mark, all 3 clues stood up like witnesses. And I finally listened. Looking back now, the pattern was hiding in plain sight. 2 roles. 1 script. My brother Brooks got belief and latitude. I got instructions and invoices. He was the golden child. I was the guarantee. Senior spring of college should have been easy. It was not. My tuition account was empty. My mother's voice on the phone was soft and certain. We had to help your brother with the coffee shop. You always land on your feet. Responsible sounds like a compliment until it becomes a debit. I landed on my feet by working 60 hours a week while finishing papers at 2 in the morning. I landed by sharing a studio where the shower sang like a subway. I learned to make oatmeal taste like a plan. I told myself this was temporary. I told myself I could outwork unfair. For the first 7 years after graduation, I saved about 65% of every paycheck. No vacations, no new furniture, no late-night delivery, just because I was tired. I packed lunches and wrote little notes to myself in the margins of a spreadsheet that would make most people cry. That discipline bought me the down payment on my 1-bedroom in Brooklyn Heights. It also taught everyone around me something dangerous, that I could carry more. 2 years ago, the slope changed. I scaled my savings down so I could send about 40% of my net pay to my family every month, on time. I told myself it was temporary again. Bridge money, a gentle word for a heavy thing. Over 24 months, those transfers added up to about $312,000. I have the bank statements, I have the memo lines: help with kids' shoes, Gap month before new job, emergency dentist. The memos read like apologies from me to me. Looking back now, the entitlement layered itself like paint, one coat at a time until the grain of the wood disappeared. There was the day my father said responsibility is not optional, then asked if I could bump the transfer because Brooks had given notice at his job for a better opportunity. There was the text where my mother added me as an authorized user to build the family credit as if my score were a communal resource. There was the morning my brother called from a dealership parking lot saying co-signing a Range Rover would be the fastest way to help him reset. I signed as the primary borrower because I believed I could watch the account like a hawk. I believed control could make generosity safe. Looking back now, I can see how each favor became precedent. A utility bill here, a security deposit there, then enrollments for the kids and promises made in my name. It did not feel like theft, it felt like family. That was the trick. I kept a ledger because that is how I breathe. Dates, amounts, recipients, notes. A second tab with my own life pared down to the studs, rent replaced by mortgage, a line for groceries that never leaked, a category for emergencies that I almost never touched. The condo board welcome packet sat on my shelf with my initials on the rules page, owner occupied, highlighted in yellow. I was proud of that. I had a front door that locked. I had a mailbox with my name. I thought that meant the story had shifted in my favor. Looking back now, I see how the sacrifices taught them the wrong lesson. Not that I was kind, not that I was disciplined, that I was available, that my achievements were a family asset by default, that my yes would arrive if they stacked the urgency high enough. And yet even then, there were 3 small warnings I did not hear. The first warning was how quickly a request turned into a requirement. Can you help with this month became, of course you will. The second warning was how often my mother spoke for me in group chats, as if my consent were implied by our last name. The third warning was how my brother referred to my condo as our place when talking to relatives as if belonging were contagious. Looking back now, I wish I had said one clean sentence sooner. Help is not the same as access. But I did not. I kept paying. I kept smoothing. I kept the peace with money I earned by saying no to myself. That is the truth of the sacrifice pattern. It looks noble from a distance. Up close, it is a quiet erosion. A choice made once, then again, then so often it stops feeling like a choice. And when the U-Haul finally rolled up to my lobby, that erosion had done exactly what erosion does. It made room for a flood. I am not telling you this to win sympathy. I am telling you because this is the foundation the betrayal stood on. Without this history, the next part makes no sense. The purchase agreement email. The deposit pulled from my account, the school registrations filed using my address. They were not random shocks. They were a straight line from years of being the guarantee. Looking back now, the evidence was already in my house waiting to be named. The spreadsheet with 2 years of transfers, the condo board rules with my initials, the Range Rover finance papers that listed me as the primary borrower. All of it sat quietly in folders and binders while I told myself family would eventually see how much I was giving. They did see. They saw capacity, and they aimed for it. This is important. I was not naive. I was trained. Trained to fix. Trained to absorb. Trained to believe that if I worked hard enough, I could afford to be generous forever. What they did not know was that the same training made me excellent at record keeping, at building a case, at turning fog into a timeline. Hold on to that, because the moment I opened the email with my full legal name in the subject line, the ledger stopped being a private coping mechanism. It became evidence, and I stopped being the guarantee. The day it snapped into focus started like any other tired New York afternoon. I was juggling a tote and a grocery bag when the lobby doors slid open and my family spilled out of an SUV with the confidence of people who believed the world would rearrange itself. My parents, my brother Brooks, his wife Marin, 3 kids buzzing like shaken soda cans. Behind them, a van in bright U-Haul orange idled at the curb. Doorman Luis gave me that polite New York question mark with his eyebrows. He has seen everything. He still looked surprised. Brooks clapped my shoulder as if this were a moving day I had agreed to. He said, "We made great time. The kids cannot wait to see their rooms." Rooms. My condo is 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 1 small closet, if you are generous. The math did not math. My mother smiled past me into the lobby. We will make it work for a week or two until closing, she said. Closing. The floor dropped half an inch. Condo board president Ruth Kaplan was at the front desk signing for a delivery. She glanced from the U-Haul to my face to the laminated building rules that live by the sign-in book, owner-occupied guest limits move-ins by approval only. Then she looked back at me and waited. Breadcrumb 1. My phone vibrated with a subject line I did not recognize. Hail Family Dream Home Purchase Agreement ready. My full legal name sat there in bold. I tapped it open because sometimes survival is a choice you make 1 pixel at a time. Inside the thread, a Westchester realtor I did not know thanked my mother by her first name for moving the process along for me. There was a PDF attached. Primary applicant, my full name. Mortgage amount $3.2 million. A second PDF showed a so-called good faith deposit already pulled from my bank account by ACH $12,500. The timestamp matched the moment I was standing there under the lobby chandelier trying not to drop a bag of lemons. Breadcrumb 2, a bank push alert blinking unauthorized transfer. I screenshotted it on muscle memory. Ruth's voice was calm. Move-ins require board approval, she said to the group. Not unkind, just factual. That is in the owner handbook Ms. Hale initialed at closing. Brooks did the grin he uses when he thinks charm is a crowbar. We are all set. Madison is co-signing a house in Scarsdale. This is just for a week or two. Marin drifted toward Louise. Is there a guest policy? She asked, quiet, almost apologetic. Ruth answered without looking at Brooks. Yes, short stays, not move-ins. Also, loading requires a permit. And no, this lobby is not a storage unit. My mother tried to take my phone like emails were still paper you could snatch. Good, they processed the hold, she said. I handled the boring parts for you. I kept my voice low. You used my name. She smiled like we were sharing a secret. Family helps family. Breadcrumb 3. The email thread included a residency letter for the school district promising occupancy at closing. A draft lease addendum sat right behind it with my condo address listed as a temporary residence for the children. My name was on the line where a signature would go, but the handwriting was not mine. The initials were a perfect imitation until you looked long enough to see the tremor. Out on the sidewalk, the U-Haul driver asked someone where to park the ramp. Brooks pointed toward the service entrance like a man who had done this before. Ruth stepped forward. No ramp, she said. Not without approval. Not today. Breadcrumb 4. The Ring camera on my door caught the orange van nosing into frame the timestamp in the corner like a witness who never blinks. It also showed exactly what I needed it to show later, a parade of suitcases that never crossed my threshold. I turned to Brooks. I did not authorize any of this. Strong word authorize, he said, still smiling. We are family. You have no dependents. We have 3. Be sensible. My throat wanted to tighten. I told it no. I am not signing, I said. I am not co-signing. I am not hosting a move-in. He leaned close the way he did as a kid when he wanted me to take the blame for what he broke. If you do not help your own family, who will? Breadcrumb 5. I forwarded the realtor email thread to my personal archive and to a new folder labeled Truth, then hit download on every attachment. I saved the bank alert. I screenshotted the subject lines with visible dates. I took a photo of the sign-in desk with the condo rules peeking out like a reminder that paper can bite. On cue, my phone began to buzz in that relentless chorus group chat's love. Brooks had posted a vague crisis request on Facebook. Prayers needed. Family emergency. Cousins I had not spoken to in years started texting, do the right thing. Aunt Patty called with tears you could hear. That poor boy and his kids. The verdict always lands before the evidence is seen. My grandmother Joanne rang my cell. I have always kept you and your brother equal in the will, she said, voice wrapped in that careful softness she uses when the ask is big. But family takes care of family. Brooks says you left them homeless. I took a breath and kept my tone adult. I saved for 9 years to own a home. They enrolled their kids in a school district where they do not live and filed a mortgage in my name. I did not agree to any of it. Silence. Then the sentence that used to make me fold. I never thought you would be so selfish. Breadcrumb 6. A voicemail from the loan officer landed while I was still in the lobby. In it, a polite voice said they had spoken with my mother earlier and just needed one more document from me to finalize pre-approval. Hearing the word finalize inside my own voicemail snapped something clean. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a plan. Ruth looked at me, not unkind. "Do you want me to call the super, or would you like to handle this yourself?" Translation: "I can be the bad cop if you need one." I straightened. "I will handle it." I turned to Luis. "Please do not let anyone bring furniture through the doors under my name. If there is any pressure, call me and the super. I will put that in writing." He nodded once, professional, a quiet yes. Marin had moved closer. She heard the words "single occupancy" when Ruth referenced the rules. She looked at Brooks. "You told me Madison had offered everyone a place until closing." Brooks did not miss a beat. She changed her mind. "She's being selfish." Marin's eyes narrowed like a woman who had finally found the lever to lift a heavy truth. "Like last year when you said she offered $5,000 and she had no memory of it," she asked, voice low. He looked away. That was the tell. It always has been. Breadcrumbs 7. Back upstairs, I spread everything across my maple table. The realtor PDFs, the residency letter, the draft lease with my address on it, the bank alert, a photo of the condo rules with my initials gleaming in yellow. I opened a new document and wrote a simple timeline in plain language. This happened, then this, then that. I added the ring timestamps. I added the voicemail transcription. I did not add feelings, not yet. I almost called my mother. I almost asked why. Then I remembered every time I had asked why in my life, and how the answer had always turned into a lecture on family duty with a side of my guilt for garnish. Instead, I texted my best friend Noelle. "Come over," I wrote. "Bring a calm voice." Breadcrumb 8. While I waited, I took screenshots of the first round of Facebook comments and the family group chat messages where my mother spoke for me in the first person. "We are so grateful Madison is stepping up. She just wants to make sure the kids are settled." There it was, consent rewritten like a caption under a photo I did not pose for. Down in the lobby, I could hear the soft lift and thunk of the elevator as the U-Haul daydreamed about being invited in. It would not be. Not today. Noelle arrived with 2 iced coffees and a look that has saved my life more than once. We did not rage. We did not spiral. We lined things up. Here is the moment that matters. Suspicion became certainty, not because I felt betrayed, but because the papers agreed with the feeling. Unauthorized deposit pulled, mortgage application filed with me as primary, residency letter using my address, draft lease with my name in a handwriting that was almost mine, school seats promised without my consent, a voicemail inviting me to finalize. That is the difference between drama and documentation. Drama asks for attention. Documentation asks for action. Noelle squeezed my shoulder. "You are not safe with people who use your name without permission," she said. "We are going to do this systematically." I nodded. The word systematically clicked into place like a key turning in the right lock. Breadcrumb 9. I created 3 folders on my desktop. Evidence. Communications. Next steps. In evidence, I dropped everything from that afternoon. In communications, I saved a draft email to an identity theft attorney a colleague had once mentioned by name. In next steps, I wrote 4 lines. Freeze credit file, FTC report file, police report, send, cease and desist. I added a 5th line because I know myself. Breathe. I stood at the window and watched the U-Haul pull away empty. The city exhaled with me. Upstairs, my phone lit up again with righteous relatives and guilt in long paragraphs. I let it ring. I let it buzz. I stopped being their guarantee. That was the day discovery ended. The next day would be the day I began. I did not sleep much that night. The city hummed through the window like a giant refrigerator, and my brain kept sorting papers no matter how still I sat. Lemon oil clung to the air from the table I had wiped 3 times. The Ring camera status light blinked a calm blue. My phone face down on the maple. The apartment felt like a holding pattern. Here is the 3-layer reveal, clean and in order. First, the surface betrayal. What happened? My identity was used to open a mortgage application I never agreed to. A deposit of $12,500 was yanked from my account without my authorization. A letter promising school residency sat in a thread where my name appeared as the responsible adult, even though I had never spoken to anyone involved. That is the top of the cake. You can see it. You can cut a slice. You can taste the wrongness immediately. Second, The deeper conspiracy. Who was involved? It was not a rogue clerk or a typo. It was my mother moving the process along as if she were my assistant. It was my brother selling a story to our relatives before I ever had a chance to speak, calling it a family crisis to recruit pressure. It was my father scheduling his life around a house in Westchester that did not exist for me. It was the use of my condo address as a temporary bridge to enroll children in a district where they did not live, supported by a realtor letter that only makes sense when everyone expects me to show up and sign. It was a room full of adults coordinated enough to rent a truck and label boxes, but not coordinated enough to grant consent the dignity of a question. Third, the pattern recognition. How long it had been planned and how long I had been trained. This was not new. This was the grown-up choreography of a childhood script. The roles had not changed. Golden child, guarantee. My generosity had been practice laps for this sprint. Years of small yeses had turned into an assumed right of way. Looking back now, I can point to when the language shifted. Can you became, you will. Thank you became, of course you did. Help became access. That recognition hit in a body way. Not just thoughts, sensation. I remember the exact moment the room tilted. A truck downshifting somewhere on the street. The refrigerator motor clicking on. The fizz of my own breath getting too loud in my ears. My palms flat on the maple table. Papers under my fingers like bark. The sunlight catching the yellow highlighter on the condo rules where I had initialed owner-occupied. My name in black ink. My initials in yellow. One detail quiet as a bell. I said the truth out loud to hear it in my own voice. They used my name without my consent. A voicemail from the loan officer played again on speaker, the careful tone of someone reading a script. We spoke with your mother earlier. We just need one more document to finalize pre-approval. The word finalize made my throat go tight. Finalize is not a conversation. Finalize is a conclusion. What they did not know was that I am very good at building a timeline. I stacked the breadcrumbs in order and watched a picture appear. The U-Haul in the ring cam frame that never crossed my threshold, the bank alert with the deposit amount, the email thread where my mother wrote in the first person as if she lived in my skin, the residency promise built on an address that is mine, not theirs, the group chat where consent was announced on my behalf like weather. I had a sensory overload moment in the lobby earlier too, but I did not name it then. The way the marble held the days cool, the scent of someone's perfume ghosting past as the elevator doors opened, the bright orange of the truck reflected in the brass rail like a warning flag. And this tiny, ridiculous symbol I cannot forget. A lemon rolled out of my grocery bag bumped my shoe and kept rolling until it rested against the baseboard at the exact moment my mother said closing. A lemon. A cleaner. A slice you put in water when you are trying to feel virtuous. It felt like a joke the universe wrote in shorthand. This is important. Awakening is not just deciding you are angry. Awakening is noticing how many systems you let run without your permission. The family script. The financial autopay. The reflex to fix so no one is uncomfortable. The belief that if you are diligent enough, you can keep generosity from becoming a door you forgot to lock. Noelle sat across from me, quiet, letting the air settle. She has a gift for not filling a room with her opinions when your own need to arrive. After a long minute, she said, "You are not safe with people who use your name without permission." Then she asked, "What do you want to do first?" I did not want a fight. I wanted oxygen. So I did the small adult things that prove you are home inside your own life. I wrote a sentence at the top of a fresh page. I will protect my identity, my address, and my money. Then I listed steps. Freeze credit. Fraud alert for 7 years. Federal Trade Commission identity theft report. Police report at the precinct. Cease and desist letters. Residency office notification. Cancel every authorized user I did not explicitly approve. Schedule a voluntary surrender for the Range Rover I had foolishly co-signed years ago because control means responsibility, and responsibility means you clean up your own old messes too. I kept the reveal layered even in my head because that is how you stay steady. Surface. Deeper. Pattern. I practiced saying it plainly so I would not escalate when family tried to minimize. My identity was used without consent. Multiple adults coordinated to benefit from that use. This fits a pattern of entitlement built over years. I have proof. I am taking action. I walked to the window and watched the streetlights come on one by one, patient, automatic, indifferent. It comforted me. The city did not care about my family's story. The city cares about forms. So do banks. So do schools. So do boards with bylaws and people like Ruth who know when a laminated page is more than a suggestion. What they did not know was that my calm is a blade when I sharpen it on facts. I could feel the power shift begin even before a single phone call was made. Not triumph. Alignment. The sense that the floor under me had found its studs again. This will matter later, but I will say it now. The most dangerous part of an awakening is the 30 seconds right after you recognize the pattern. That is when you want to shout to accuse to swing at air. I did not. I put the papers in labeled folders. I set 2 alarms so I would get to the precinct when the line is shortest. I wrote down the bank's fraud claim process so I would not improvise. I placed my grandmother's number under a sticky note that said, "Not today." I rinsed the lemon and set it back in the bowl. I wiped the ring it left on the table because I am still me. Then I turned off the overhead light and let the soft lamp hold the room the way I want to hold my life from now on. Deliberate, quiet, mine. Awakening complete. Revelation integrated. The next part is not rage, it is a plan. I woke before the alarm and let the city make the first sound. A bus sighed, pipes clicked. Somewhere a neighbor's kettle whistled like permission. I did not reach for rage. I reached for a pen. Calm first, then consequences. Step 1. I locked the doors you cannot see. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus. I placed a fraud alert that will run for 7 years. I changed every password and turned on 2-factor everywhere, even the accounts I barely use. I kept a running log with timestamps because future me would need to prove present me did the work. Step 2. I made it official. I filed an identity theft report with the Federal Trade Commission and printed the confirmation. I walked to the precinct when the line is shortest and filed a police report with the voicemail from the loan officer attached. The officer took it seriously, which steadied me in a way I did not know I needed. Case number 2 copies, 1 for the bank, 1 for my binder. Step 3. The paper trail. I printed the residency letter that promised occupancy at closing and stapled it to a screenshot of my condo board rules where I had initialed owner occupied. I added the draft lease that listed my address for the children, the email thread where my mother wrote in the first person for me, and the bank alert that showed an unauthorized withdrawal of $12,500. I transcribed the voicemail that said finalize. That word matters. I highlighted it. What they did not know was that preparation is a power all its own. Panic rushes, preparation stacks. Step 4. Counsel. Evan connected me with attorney Patel, who treats chaos like a filing cabinet missing 1 label. We did a short call. I did not cry. I did not overshare. I read the bullets from my timeline. He said, "Good, keep it clean." Then he sent letters. Cease and desist to the lender and the realtor. The application was unauthorized. Withdraw immediately. Preserve all records. Do not contact me directly. A separate letter to my family through counsel. Do not attempt to enter my building or approach staff. All future communication goes through my attorney. In our world, that is called a trespass letter. It is boring on purpose. Boring gets enforced. Step 5. The money. I called my bank, opened a fraud claim on the so-called good faith deposit, and submitted the FTC confirmation, the police report number, and the email thread. No drama, just documents. The deposit went into formal dispute status. It would not fly back to my account overnight, but it would not sit in someone else's pocket pretending to belong there either. I told my fear to stop asking for instant victories and start asking for provable ones. Step 6. The car I should never have touched. Years back, I had co-signed a Range Rover to help my brother build credit. Primary borrower. My mistake. My responsibility. I called the lender and scheduled a voluntary surrender at the address where Brooks keeps the vehicle. Clear day. Clear time. No spectacle. When you clean up your own old messes, you take away the excuse that you only do what hurts other people. I do my part. Then I do the next right thing. Step 7. The school. I phoned the Scarsdale District Residency Office and asked about documentation standards. They were polite and precise. I forwarded my police report and FTC number along with Attorney Patel's letter stating the mortgage application was unauthorized and would be withdrawn. I did not ask for special treatment. I asked for alignment with their rules. They thanked me and said they would review. I wrote down the date. A decision would come within a few days. Facts do not need urgency. They need order. Step 8. The online pressure campaign. Brooks had already posted the Facebook prayer request, and relatives were building a choir of guilt in the comments. I did not respond in public. Instead, I drafted a neutral identity theft PSA for a community newsletter where professionals share resources. 3 bullet points: never sign for family. Without consent, keep written records how to recover if someone uses your identity. No names, no subtext, just help. It traveled on its own. The right people always recognize themselves. And yes, I know what you are wondering. Did that PSA ripple back into my brother's work world? I will get to that. For now, understand this. I did not weaponize my employer or any brand account. I used my personal voice and a third-party community channel on purpose. Clean lines keep you safe. Step 9. The accounts that had multiplied like weeds. Over the years, my mother had added me as an authorized user here, a guarantor there, always for the family credit. I pulled the full list, closed every line I had not explicitly approved, and asked for letters confirming removal. Future me will need those letters when a ghost account tries to haunt my score. Throughout the day, my phone vibrated with long paragraphs dressed as love. You are tearing this family apart. We already gave notice. The kids are enrolled. Just sign. Be sensible. I did not take the bait. I funneled every message to Attorney Patel. I let silence do the heavy lifting. There were meetings, too. A quick one with Ruth, our condo board president, just to put faces to emails. We reviewed the building's owner-occupied clause together. She is not sentimental about rules, and I love her for it. She logged my trespass notice with management and briefed the staff, including overnight. Doorman Luis gave me a small nod that said, "I've got you." It felt like a lock clicking. Later, a call with the lender's compliance officer. Calm voice, careful words. I confirmed I had not initiated the mortgage. I confirmed I had not authorized any deposit. I confirmed the person corresponding on the file was not my agent. Then I sent the paperwork again because repetition is a kindness to systems. At sunset, I walked the 2 blocks to the precinct to drop off one more copy of the report for my own file. On the way back, I passed the kind of storefront that sells lamps you do not need and cardigans you secretly want. In the window, I saw my reflection holding a folder instead of holding the world together. It startled me, the relief of not being the guarantee anymore. What they did not know was that preparation flips the power quietly before consequences ever show up with their boots on. The power did not change when anyone apologized. It changed when I could point to a page and say, "That is mine, that is not here," is the proof. I ended the day the way I started it. Pen in hand, log open, breathing, like someone who trusts her own process. Under next steps, I added 2 lines. Follow up with the school in a few days. Confirm voluntary surrender pickup at Brooks's address in writing. I turned my phone face down and let the city sing me to sleep. Not triumphant, just aligned. Tomorrow would bring the visible part, the pieces people gossip about. But tonight was the part that matters. The plan exists. The doors are locked. The wheel is in my hands. By week 4, we were in a modest country club in Queens for my grandmother Joanne's 80th. Cream wallpaper, a podium that had seen better speeches. I did not want a scene. I brought documents. My father cleared his throat and asked for no lawyers, no spectacle. Fine. Documentation is not a spectacle. It is a mirror. Evan stood beside the laptop to help with slides. He is not a lawyer. He is my legal ops colleague. Attorney Patel was not present per the family's request. Noelle stood beside me like ballast. I faced my family and the extended audience that had already tried me in group chats. Slide 1, a single word. Consent. Slide 2 email headers with my full legal name and a subject line that read, "Purchase agreement ready." Slide 3, the lender thread where my mother wrote in the first person as if she lived in my skin. Slide 4, the bank alert showing a $12,500 ACH withdrawal flagged as unauthorized. Slide 5, the residency letter promising occupancy at closing, pinned to a screenshot of my condo rules owner, occupied, highlighted in quiet yellow. Slide 6, stills from the Ring camera and orange U-Haul edging my doorway, time-stamped never crossing my threshold. Slide 7, redacted excerpts from the family group chat where my consent was announced for me. Slide 8, the police report number and the Federal Trade Commission identity theft confirmation. Slide 9, the Scarsdale District's rescind notice issued earlier this week a few days after my report. Slide 10, the bank's reversal receipt finalized earlier this week, returning the $12,500. I spoke like I was at work because that is where I learned to be heard without shouting. For 2 years, I sent about 40% of my net pay to support this family. That totals about $312,000. I did not authorize a mortgage for $3.2 million. I did not authorize a deposit of $12,500. Using my identity, my address, or my credit without my consent is a crime, not a misunderstanding. I have acted to protect myself. I am continuing to act. Brooks laughed like the room was a stage. "You are cutting yourself off," he said. "You have no dependents. We have 3. Be sensible." I nodded at the slide where his own message sat under the words, "We will be moving into Madison's place for a week or 2. I kept my tone level. Sensible is documentation. Sensible is boundaries. Sensible is not signing things I did not initiate. My mother tried the old lullaby. Family takes care of family. Family asks, I said. It does not forge. The room breathed. A few aunts looked at their shoes. An uncle coughed into a napkin. My grandmother stared at the police report number as if numbers could be impolite. Then she adjusted because she always has. Well, she said that seems clear. The consequences landed in boring, enforceable steps. The Realtors Council acknowledged withdrawal of the file and logged my police report number. The lender's compliance team confirmed removal of my name and preserved all correspondence. The Scarsdale District had already rescinded the children's pre-registrations a few days after my report and before this gathering. That notice was in the deck. My bank concluded its investigation earlier this week and returned the $12,500. The reversal receipt was on the slide as well. 2 brokerages that had been feeding Brooks contractor referrals quietly off-boarded him after a compliance review triggered by a neutral identity theft PSA I shared through a third-party community newsletter. I did not name him. I did not use any company account. I posted resources and best practices. Reputational ripples did the rest. As for the Range Rover I had foolishly co-signed years ago, the lender completed the voluntary surrender at Brooks's driveway on a clear weekday afternoon. No spectacle. The vehicle is in storage awaiting an auction on a scheduled date, which is how that world works, no matter how loudly someone insists otherwise. There were messy parts because justice is never tidy. Brooks started buzzing my building door late at night as if persistence were a legal argument. My attorney filed for a restraining order. A judge granted 2 years. My parents asked to talk privately. No paper. I declined. All future communication through counsel. We also closed the ledger with a civil settlement that returned $310,000 to me and included a non-disparagement clause. The settlement figure is slightly lower than the total support because that is how negotiation offsets and fees work in the real world. Through it all, I never raised my voice. I never begged. I never explained myself to people who had already decided what my explanation should be. I pointed to pages. I kept logs. I walked out of that country club the way I walked in upright, steady mine. Immediate aftermath looked like this. The condo board logged my trespass notice, briefed overnight staff, and put my family on a do not admit list without requiring me to be present. Dorman Luis gave me a little nod every time I passed that said, "We enforce the rules here." The group chat that once agreed I would co-sign fell abruptly silent. Pressure evaporates when it cannot find purchase. Justice was not fireworks. Justice was forms that held. Justice was the relief of hearing a door close softly and knowing it will stay closed unless I open it. 3 months later, my living room looked like a quiet victory. A thrifted lamp throwing a warm circle onto a maple table. A bowl of lemons that I now associate with clean boundaries instead of panic. A doormat at the door with my name on it, because a friend thought I needed a literal line. We turned my housewarming into something better than a party, a small ongoing microfund for people dealing with identity theft inside their own families. No names, just help. A link in a community newsletter. $50 here, $100 there. Enough to cover a report fee, a notary, a certified letter, when a victim needs bureaucracy to see them. Noelle poured seltzer into wine glasses because we had work in the morning. Evan pretended not to check the snack levels every 10 minutes. Luis dropped by after his shift with a bakery box and a shy smile you only see at 2 p.m. behind a doorman desk. Ruth knocked with a hardy plant labeled low drama, medium light. My neighbor Janet brought strawberry shortcake and a joke about how boundaries and baking both require exact measurements if you want them to hold. There was no reconciliation arc. There was a building staff who knew the rules and applied them to everyone. There was a grandmother who called once and asked to visit alone for coffee. I said yes on a Tuesday after 6:30 and no to any conversation about my address, my title, or my accounts. We talked about cinnamon cookies. We did not negotiate my life. I work better now, not because trauma made me sharper, but because I do not spend my focus patching a dam I did not build. I sleep better, too, not because everything is fixed, but because I finally believe I'm allowed to protect what I built. If you are standing where I stood, hear this. Saying no is not cruelty. It is design. It is how you make a home that can hold you. It is how you make sure generosity stays a gift and never becomes a loophole. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your future? Tell me what you did and where you are watching from. If this story helped you breathe a little deeper, subscribe for more first-person truths about boundaries, self-worth, and the kind of revenge that looks like choosing yourself and then choosing yourself again. I am Madison. I am not a guarantee anymore. I am a person with a porch mat that says my name, a spreadsheet that reads like freedom, and a circle of people who understand that love without consent is not love at all.